The restaurant went silent. The CEO's laughter echoed across the room as she mocked the nervous waiter for spilling a drop of wine. "Do you even know how to pour properly?" she snapped. Her assistant shifted uncomfortably beside her. But then, a few seconds later, the assistant leaned in and whispered 5 words that turned the powerful woman's face pale. "That's him, ma'am, the man who saved your son." In that moment, the CEO froze, her world spinning as she looked again at the man she had just humiliated. The poor waiter, the one she had ridiculed, wasn't just anyone. He was the hero she owed everything to. Before we dive into this powerful true-to-life story, take a moment to subscribe to Kindness Lights, where real stories remind us that compassion and humility still matter. If this story touches your heart, hit the like button, share it with someone who needs it today, and tell us in the comments what kindness means to you. Now, let's begin. It was a rainy Friday evening in downtown Chicago. The soft jazz music in the upscale restaurant blended with the clinking of glasses and murmurs of quiet conversations. At a corner table, sat Margaret Hill, the CEO of one of the city's biggest marketing firms, a woman known for her sharp mind, designer suits, and, unfortunately, her short temper. Across from her sat her young assistant, Emily, who had been with her for only 3 months. Emily admired Margaret's success but often found herself uneasy with how cold and dismissive her boss could be, especially toward people she considered beneath her. That evening, Margaret was celebrating the close of a massive deal. The kind of deal that would make headlines. She was in high spirits, laughing loudly, enjoying her glass of wine, and barely acknowledging the staff around her. The waiter that night was Daniel, a soft-spoken man in his late 30s. He had kind eyes, though they carried a weight of exhaustion. He moved carefully between tables, his hands steady but his mind distracted. He was covering extra shifts to pay for his mother's medical bills. When Daniel approached their table, he smiled politely and asked if they were ready for another bottle of red. Margaret waved her hand impatiently. "Make it quick," she said, without looking up from her phone. As Daniel began pouring, his hand slipped slightly, and a small drop of wine splashed onto the crisp white tablecloth. Margaret's head shot up. "Unbelievable," she said sharply. "Do you not know how to do your job? This is a 5-star restaurant, not a diner." The nearby diners turned to look. Daniel's face flushed red. He quickly apologized and reached for a napkin. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I'll replace the cloth immediately." But Margaret wasn't done. "Maybe you should find another line of work. Something that doesn't involve coordination," she said coldly, smirking as if it were a joke. Emily's stomach twisted. She wanted to say something, but years of working in corporate offices had taught her when to stay silent. Still, she felt something deeply wrong in that moment. Daniel, maintaining his composure, nodded respectfully. "Of course, ma'am," he said softly, then turned away. As he walked toward the back, Emily noticed his limp. Just a slight one, barely visible, but it triggered a memory. Her mind flashed back to a story Margaret had told her just weeks ago, about the night her teenage son had been rescued from a terrible car accident. A man had pulled the boy from the wreck just before the car caught fire. Margaret said she never met the man who saved him, he had left before the paramedics arrived. Emily's heart started to race as she looked more closely at the waiter. That limp, that calm, kind face, it matched the description Margaret had once mentioned, almost offhandedly, of her son's unknown rescuer. Emily leaned closer to her boss. "Ma'am," she whispered, "I think that waiter might be the man who saved your son." Margaret blinked. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her tone impatient. "Look," Emily said quietly, glancing toward Daniel. "You told me the man who saved your son was a restaurant worker who got hurt pulling him out. He had a limp afterward. Doesn't that sound like him?" Margaret's confidence cracked. She turned slowly in her chair and looked at Daniel again. He was helping another table now, smiling politely despite the earlier humiliation. Her breath caught. The memory of that night hit her, the hospital call, the news that her son was alive because of a stranger who had risked his own life. She had always meant to find him. To thank him. To repay him somehow. But she never did. And now, she had just insulted him. Margaret stood abruptly. "Excuse me," she said, her voice trembling slightly. She walked toward Daniel, who looked startled to see her approaching. "Ma'am, can I help you?" he asked, trying to maintain professionalism. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. You're the man from the accident, aren't you? 3 years ago, on Lakeshore Drive?" Daniel hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am. I remember your son. I'm glad he's doing well." Her hand flew to her mouth. "I can't believe it," she whispered. "I've been wanting to find you for years." The entire restaurant seemed to pause, watching the exchange. Emily sat quietly, her heart full. Margaret's voice cracked as she said, "I just yelled at the man who saved my child's life." Daniel smiled gently. "It's all right, ma'am. Really. We all have hard days." She shook her head. "No, it's not all right. You didn't deserve that." She turned to the manager nearby. "This man deserves the highest commendation. And I'll personally make sure he gets it." Over the next few minutes, Margaret insisted on sitting with Daniel during his break. They talked,